attract innovative talent, innovative mindsets, creative mindsets? Do you have any strategies around how companies could actually attract and find that talent to add to their pool?
Yeah. So if they are given the resources and you're able to keep those talented individuals in-house, your rate of innovation is definitely going to go up. Getting to your question, while there are ways to look for innovative, creative people from outside, first thing to do is actually look inside and make sure that the creative people you have aren't leaving you.
You're listening to The Pivotal Leader, where modern leaders talk about the moments that shifted their organizational cultures and pivoted their teams to success. Hey everybody, this is Gina Trimarco, Chief Results Officer of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Each week on The Pivotal Leader, I feature inspirational leaders who know how to positively impact their customers, employees, and brand through culture building. In this episode of The Pivotal Leader, I interviewed Dr. Kumar Mehta, author of the new book, The Innovation Biome, a sustained business environment where innovation thrives. He has been at the forefront of innovation, research, and data analytics for over 25 years. Dr. Mehta founded Bridges Insight, an innovation think tank committed to researching innovation and helping organizations accelerate their rate of innovation. Kumar has studied innovation before innovation was even a buzzword, basing his 1990 Ph.D. dissertation on the diffusion of innovations. Since then, he has applied many innovation frameworks in his 14 years at Microsoft and throughout his tenure building out innovative companies. Just as Kumar built a successful enterprise with a vision around the institutionalization of data analytics of a decade ago, today he's embarking on a journey to institutionalize innovation science. I'm giggling because I tried doing that line 3 times and we're just leaving it the way it is because I love being imperfect. Kumar also serves as a senior research fellow at the Center for the Digital Future of the University of Southern California. From 2007 to 2016, Dr. Mehta was the CEO of a group of 4 companies employing over 1,200 professionals worldwide. The companies he grew and managed included Blue Ocean Market Intelligence, one of the world's premier data analytic firms, Crosstab Marketing Services, a global leader in market research services, Borderless Access, a specialist in emerging markets, and Informate Mobile Intelligence, the world's largest measurement company, which was acquired by Nielsen. Kumar managed this group of companies with high growth and profitability and without any external investment. Before that, Kumar was at Microsoft for 14 years, approximately. He started as one of the founding members of the very first research and analytics team at Microsoft, and over time, managed some of Microsoft's largest and most strategic projects. He has directed over $250 million of consulting, research, and analytics at Microsoft. Kumar also worked in business strategy, corporate development, competitive intelligence, corporate finance, and has directly led some of the most strategic analytic initiatives at Microsoft. Let's learn from Kumar Mehta. Hello, Kumar. Welcome to The Pivotal Leader today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So excited to have you. You're all the way on the northwest coast. I'm all the way on the southeast coast. Many miles between us, but here we are together today. And what I'd like to do is jump right in. It's not like every time we have a podcast guest that they've written a book. So I'd like to jump right in because I think it's your book that actually drew me in to have you on this podcast, because innovation to me is really kind of a juicy topic. And the work that you've done with your book, I think, is really fascinating. So if that's good with you, could you just go straight to telling us a little bit about your book and how you got the idea to do it?
Sure. So I wrote this book called The Innovation Biome. I wrote it because from the beginning of time, innovation has enhanced all of our lives. When companies innovate, all of our lives get better. And that's one of the core premises behind the book. Now, the thing is that as important as innovation is to organizations, it is one of the most misunderstood and inconsistently applied activities. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to share a scientific approach that allows organizations to build a sustained environment where innovation thrives. And that's something that I called the Innovation Biome. And there's a lot, as you may know, there's a lot written about innovation. There's, countless books and countless articles and blogs and everything about innovation, but there's still no clear view on what innovation is and how companies can become more innovative. And as important as innovation is to the continued success and even the very existence of an organization, the process of innovation, frankly, is a jumbled mess with multiple theories. Sometimes they conflict with each other. There are, books and magazines promote a specific methodology or a hot new tool or a hot new approach to solve all your innovation problems. And that pretty much soon goes out of favor and is replaced by another hot new approach. And one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that if any other corporate process, such as finance, operations, manufacturing, sales, marketing, if any of these things have the level of ambiguity, uncertainty, unaccountability as the innovation process, a business could hardly be run with any degree of effectiveness. So the book specifically is written to address two questions. To answer two questions. The first is remove misunderstandings around innovation and get readers to understand the foundational elements or the specific conditions that need to be present for innovation to happen. And then also present a framework that companies can apply so innovation becomes institutionalized and, so it's not the domain of specific pockets of the company.
What is your definition of innovation?
Innovation to me is actually my definition of innovation. There's thousands of definitions out there. And my definition is actually inspired by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office's definition. And basically, it's the process that begins with an idea, and it's a series of steps that results in something of value for society to enjoy. And innovation is the entire thing. And it's a collection of different ideas, different minds, different amounts of creativity, and all of those things that lead to something that results in societal value or something that all of us can use and enjoy and appreciate and something that enhances all of our lives.
So that seems pretty understandable. But so one of the things your book addresses is removing the misunderstandings around innovation. What are some of those misunderstandings?
For example, right now, when companies want to innovate, they look outside and they say, hey, let's see how Silicon Valley innovates. Let me go and send some executives to Silicon Valley and see what they do. And there's actually companies that organize Silicon Valley tours. They try to understand what they're doing. Some companies say, startups have this cool culture and they're incredibly innovative. Why don't I just incubate a startup inside my company? Or why don't I, just go and buy a startup? Sometimes companies may say that, there's these innovation software platforms that'll let me innovate. Let me just go ahead and use a software platform that helps me generate ideas and kind of filter them through the company. Now, each of these areas are not necessarily bad. They're all fine. You can learn from everything. But the point is that if any one of these methodologies or approaches resulted in innovation, we'd all be using it by now. And then there's many more. Many consultants have their own theories of innovation. Sometimes people right now talk about kind of fast launch, fast failure, and their innovation sprints. And there are all these different things that independently are perfectly fine things. But really, like I said, if any one of these things resulted in companies coming up with new products and new offerings, then we know it all and we'd all be using it by now.
What's some of the framework that companies can apply to become more innovative?
That's a good question. The premise of the book for me is that the only way you can actually become more innovative is if you understand the drivers of innovation and if you understand what makes innovation happen. And then you need to establish the presence of these drivers. Now, many companies that are innovative, that we think about as innovative, do this instinctively. Maybe because they have superstar leaders and they've instilled a culture of innovation, or it may be a conscious effort, or even it may be just things happen and fell in the right place for conditions to emerge. But the fact is that every company, if they apply the right thinking to innovation and make sure that the conditions that foster innovation are present, can accelerate the rate of innovation. And actually, those are the conditions that I call the innovation biome. But one of the biggest kind of inconsistencies and misunderstandings is that there's different kinds of innovations. And companies generally try to apply the same tools to each kind of innovation. And it's basically the pairing of the right tools to the outcomes you want that determines how successful your innovation efforts should be. So, for example, there's advancement innovation. And, there's innovation through improving products by adding features, by enhancing support, increasing efficiency, developing your next generation of your mobile device or your car or your, laundry detergent or whatever it is you're working on. That is innovation, but that is improving on something that's already out there. There's another kind of activities that I call reframing activities. And these are brand new activities that kind of do things in a completely different way. And these are driven by R&D. So for example, the invention of a new drug or the invention of the internet or the invention of something brand new falls in these buckets, just something completely orthogonal to how we've been doing things currently. And then there's another kind of innovation that I call experiential innovation, which is designed to enhance human experiences in new ways and novel ways. And these may not be new things. They may be stitching together what's already been invented and what's out there to create new value. So, for example, while the invention of the airplane was a new activity, its application to commercial aviation is an experiential activity. Or while the invention of the internet was a new activity, online commerce or online banking is a new activity. Or, while people have invented phones and cameras and they keep making them better, combining it into a single device enhances experiences forever. So the point is that, each of these kinds of innovations require different tools, different organizational structures, different knowledge frames. And that's kind of what I try to highlight in the framework portion of the book.
The word biome is in the title. Can you expand on that a little bit and how you take that word and apply it in your book? And for people who might not know what a biome is, can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've modeled the learning of innovation on the system that throughout time has been the single most successful environment for breakthrough creation. And that is the natural environment that supports life. So the nature around us is the single most remarkable system that offers the environment for certain creations to thrive and others to perish. And the largest and most significant natural environments on the planet are called biomes. And these are large regions of the earth that we've kind of heard about, like the tundra, the deciduous and tropical forests, grasslands, deserts. And now each biome contains several ecosystems within it. And ecosystems are groups of interconnected elements that form this interactive community. And I use this metaphor for a corporation. So think about a company or a corporation as a biome with its own ecosystems and networked elements like departments and teams and approaches and structures. And all of these are the things that reside within the company and continually interact with each other and hopefully flourish. So for example, there's a marketing ecosystem with its own set of players and interconnections. There's a sales ecosystem or a product development ecosystem. And all of these things are designed to work together, and they may sometimes, or they may clash with one another, but they all live in the same environment, the biome, and generally thrive or fail as one. And more than anything else, your biome determines how productive your company is. And just one example that I've used in the book is that, a biome is determined by many of its natural attributes. So, take seasons, for example. Biomes with a longer growing season are more productive in developing new creations than those with a shorter growing season. In the same way, innovation also requires a long growing season. Now, unfortunately, in many companies, innovation activities are characterized by one-off initiatives, such as innovation contests or innovation sprints. And there's nothing wrong with with an innovation contest in and of itself, but the fact that these initiatives are intermittent rather than woven into the fabric of the company means that the innovation biome is almost guaranteed to be fruitless. And this is simply because the growing season for innovation is a series of short bursts. So that's basically kind of what I talk about. That's why I talk about this as the innovation biome. For example, innovation activities are like the soil in the rainforest. It's not the most fertile. It's not the best soil, but it's most likely to get absorbed into trees that are already growing. And growing these multiple trees provides the best option for one of them to break through. And that's what gives us this, these great products. And metaphorically, every company is looking for their own kind of big tree, this big breakthrough But the only way companies can do that is act as a fertile biome and provide the environment that enables innovations. And it's the little things that make one big breakthrough possible. And many things have to happen all the time for the breakthrough to happen. It's never about solely chasing the big breakthrough, saying, oh, I want to build the next iPhone, or I want to build the next, big cure for cancer. It's about doing 1,000 little things all the time, and then one or two of them will kind of break through the canopy.
What can an organization do to provide the environment that allows for innovation? To have that, I like that you said it was innovation season. Did you refer?
Yeah.
I like that. So how do we create our innovation seasons? How do we create that environment in an organization?
So that is creating the innovation biome, and basically, you do that by treating innovation as a core part of your company. It's not the domain of a few people. It's something that everyone does. Everyone needs to push the boundaries in what they do, no matter where you are in the organization. You're going to get far more results from innovation if you're a big company, or even if you're a smaller company, if your entire workforce is innovating in their own little way, rather than saying, oh, I'm going to have this innovation group, or I'm going to bring in these consultants to come and teach, these 10 people how to innovate. It's basically making a cultural shift. It's understanding what drives innovation. It's putting in the factors that let an innovative environment thrive. In essence, creating an innovation biome.
Is everybody capable of being innovative?
I believe so, to whatever extent they can. So one of the things you need to start innovation is you need to come up with ideas, or you need creativity. If you don't have creativity, then you can only improve on the methods that are in place. And this is linear thinking, and that's not going to get you the transformations that you want. In one of the chapters of the book, I talk about how to curate and assemble the right level of creativity. When we think about these great innovators, whether they're Einstein or Edison or Jobs or Gates or all of these people who have these incredibly gifted minds, we say, hey, are all great innovators geniuses? Maybe, but if we want to be innovative, without having those rare, incredibly talented minds available, we're going to have to assemble those, and we're going to have to curate those. As with everything else in the book, I try to use science to understand and break down into components, so, what can drive different aspects of innovation. So if you look at creativity as one of the components of innovation, creativity is actually made up of two different components: creative potential and creative achievement. Now, creative potential is an individual's ability to generate something new and novel, whereas creative achievement is their ability to follow through on their creative urge. Both of these are required for innovation. Without the idea, you have nothing to implement, and without the ability to follow through, you simply have daydreams. Now the people, I talked about that we consider as great innovators likely have both of these abilities in spades. But there's no reason why we cannot assemble and curate those from different sets of people. So if you find someone with creative potential and couple them and match them with someone with creative achievement, you get both of those factors working together, which enhances your enhances your chances of innovation. So there are many things of that sort where we can actually build, assemble, and curate to enhance the rate of innovation.
I find this part about creativity fascinating because, kind of like the word innovation, people can get lost in it. Creativity, people can get lost in it. Myself, having a creative company besides our training company, having an improv company where we train people to be more creative. And people say, how can you train people to be more creative? Well, we're exercising their brains to think differently, to solve problems. And it's kind of interesting, the potential versus the achievement. This kind of fascinates me because you've got those people who have the amazing ideas, but they might not be very good at the follow through. They're the bigger thinkers. They're the visionaries. And then you have the creative people who are going to make it happen, but they might not necessarily see themselves as creative. So I find that really interesting. And again, kind of tying it back to improv, we talk about there are two people on stage together. There's the person who initiates the idea, and then there's the person next to them who, what we call yes-anding. They have to yes-and the idea, which means I accept your idea and I'm going to heighten it. And you have some people who are really amazing initiators on stage, and you have some people who are really amazing supporters on stage. So I see a parallel in that creativity world. I would probably describe improv world like that. We have the potentials and we have the achievement both on stage. Are those two different types of people? Is it two different skill sets or IQs or intelligence? Or can you talk a little bit more about those two different types of people?
Sure. So there are two different skill sets. Now, both of those skill sets may be within the same individual, or they may be, or they may not. An interesting study actually showed, when we talk about intelligence, an interesting study showed a positive correlation between intelligence and creative potential. This means that a person who is more intelligent is more likely to be more creative. And this is because creativity is a complex task that draws upon the brain processes that are related to IQ. However, the interesting thing to note is that this correlation vanishes after a threshold at an approximate IQ level of 120. And after that point, how smart the person is has no clear link to creativity. Mm. So while an IQ of 120 is certainly high, it's somewhere between, according to the classification, it's the cusp between high, average, and superior. It is by no means the near genius level IQs we often associate with these brilliant innovators. And this range of IQ is found in the normal corporation. Now, the same study also showed that while intelligence up to the 120 IQ threshold relates to creative potential, there's no linkage between intelligence and creative achievement. This means that the follow-through is possible across a wide range of intellectual ability. So in a practical setting, this suggests that although creativity is a complex task, it can actually be unleashed within the normal range of intellectual abilities found within most companies. And most companies have the required element. The thing that they need to realize is that these people and these skill sets need to be effectively cultivated, have to be effectively curated and put together to cultivate creativity. And if you're able to do that, then you have created an environment where creativity thrives and is given the best chance of success.
What are your thoughts on? Do we just schedule a brainstorming session to get innovative? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So once you understand the elements of creativity as we've just described, then we need to extract the creative ideas from our team so that we can go out and develop these fantastic market-leading breakthroughs. Now, for most companies, the common approach is to find a few people that are considered to be innovative for whatever reason, or successful, or smart, or someone who's done well in a certain project. And you find a few of these people, and you say you assign them to a small group and say, hey, why don't you guys go and brainstorm some creative ideas and potential breakthroughs? Because in your mind, you've got these smart people who are going to do some thinking and hopefully build upon each other's thinking and so on. Now, again, going back to science, the research and the literature on this subject shows that collaborative thinking, brainstorming, may not necessarily be superior to individual thinking in the development of higher value creative output. There was a study done by Yale University that compared the productivity of brainstorming groups versus individual thinking to determine the quantity and quality of creative ideas. And the researchers found that the ideas coming from brainstorming groups were markedly fewer than those developed by individuals, both in terms of the total number of ideas and the unique ideas. And that's because your brainstorming has just some flaws that are just built into it that we need to understand. So, for example, brainstorming sessions tend to focus on information that group participants have in common rather than bringing out unique expertise. Or sometimes participants are afraid of sharing ideas because they may, they kind of don't want to appear foolish. Or others may just ghost because they don't feel accountable in a group setting. Some people have social and cultural barriers that prevent them from sharing ideas. Or some may just be introverts. Sometimes, and as we've all seen this, sometimes certain participants monopolize the conversation. Mm-hmm. In many cases, these brainstorming sessions are dominated by the most senior people, the most vocal participants, or the people who want to make their presence felt. And all of these factors in a typical brainstorming session create an unwelcome setting that discourages creative thinking. Now, mind you that ideas need to collide with one another, and people have to collaborate for innovation and creativity to thrive. And therefore, one of the things that I talk about is a hybrid model where individuals are given their own space to do their own independent thinking, and then followed by an opportunity to collaborate and share developments and refine ideas.
If a company wanted to encourage that type of environment, because that's really interesting. I think you've really hit on some important things. There are a lot of introverted people who are not going to maybe step up and share. They don't want to be the first person who puts an idea out there. They wait for that A personality that is going to put it out there. I think that kind of individual work, there's a lot of brilliant people who are just quiet. They'll work on that individual work. So what would you suggest to a company? You create this kind of individual time, and then we're going to come back together and share our ideas and take a turn, each sharing an idea. Would that be one approach? What are some of your suggestions?
So exactly. So that is one approach, and that is proven to be a very effective approach because, and this has been documented by a number of other writers and researchers as well, is that, the breakthroughs happen when after people work independently, they kind of collaborate and share ideas, and it's that feedback and the discussion of developments by different individual people, when they run against other ideas, is when breakthroughs happen. So what you described is exactly one way. Now there are several other techniques that also kind of help creativity thrive. One technique is called brainwriting, and this technique allows for sharing written ideas in groups and eliminates many of the flaws of brainstorming. And, so in some ways, this is a technique that lets people write down their ideas and pass them on to colleagues for refinement. This way, some of the typical flaws of brainstorming are taken away. But any of these techniques, and even brainstorming, could work as long as we understand kind of what the inherent flaws are and we try to fix them. And companies can use any of a number of approaches.
I love the brainwriting. I'd never heard of that. I think that's a really interesting approach.
Yeah. There's a bunch of literature on it, and I talked about it a little bit, but I'm certainly no expert in brainwriting, but there's a lot of information you can find on it.
One of my favorite things about this podcast, every guest that comes on brings something new and interesting that I've never heard of before. And I think that's part of what we are trying to put out there is give people things to think about. I want to shift for a second to company cultures because that's something that we help companies with. How do we fix your culture, turn your culture around, get your culture in place, especially a lot of startups. They start up and they run hard, and culture really creates itself as it goes. But I'd like some of your perspective because I know that you were CEO of a group of 4 companies. And I know you worked at Microsoft for, was it 14 years?
Almost.
So what are some of your thoughts from a culture perspective, right? If you want to attract the innovative talent, innovative mindsets, creative mindsets, do you have any strategies around how companies could actually attract and find that talent to add to their pool?
Yeah. First off, before attracting creative talent or innovative mindset, I'd just like to make a comment that very often you may have that mindset already in your company. So it's not, companies have this tendency to always look outward for ideas. They kind of look outward, like I said, how does Silicon Valley innovate? Who can I bring in that'll bring in the culture of a successful startup? Sometimes, like I said, they engage consultants and do all kinds of things. Now, this thinking is sometimes flawed because while few executives may realize it, the bright, bold innovators that they're looking for are very likely working within their own organizations. So enhancing the rate of innovation, the first step is just thinking differently about what you're doing, about management, about rewards, failure, risk-taking. And entrepreneurs have an intrinsic understanding of how to think innovatively. Corporations have lost that somewhere along the line as they've grown from small companies to big companies. But this is certainly not because they lack the entrepreneurial talent. They have these bright, bold thinkers and entrepreneurs who can take great ideas and build successful businesses from them. In fact, there was a study done by the Kauffman Foundation of about 550 odd founders of successful businesses in high growth industries. And what they learned was that over 75% of these successful entrepreneurs worked at other companies for more than 6 years before going out and starting their own companies. So unlike the vision we have of these brilliant entrepreneurs, the typical entrepreneur came from another company, but did
Right.
not find the environment that was conducive to innovation and actually left and started their own company that became successful. And now all of a sudden, everybody wants to emulate kind of the skills they had. So again, now this is kind of all the research that I've done and put in the innovation biome, that there's so many of these kind of misunderstandings out there. Now, the problem is that companies are unable to retain these entrepreneurs within their companies. And the most creative and motivated talent goes off and starts new companies against all odds. Now, had the original employers been able to provide a more fertile environment for innovation, there's a good chance that these great new businesses would have been formed internally, and they would have been more successful when supported by the resources of a larger organization. We do know that 80 to 90% of startups fail. So if they are given the resources and you're able to keep those talented individuals in-house, your rate of innovation is definitely going to go up. Getting to your question, while there are ways to look for innovative, creative people from outside, first thing to do is actually look inside and make sure that the creative people you have aren't leaving you.
It's such a great point. And I really want everybody listening to take this home with you. I think this happens all the time, that people are not looked at. I've worked in a recruiter capacity oftentimes with organizations and with clients, and they're quick to go, oh, we have this opening and we're going to recruit for it. And my first question always is there somebody internally that we can look at first? And I start them thinking, and then we start looking through the list of employees. And I said, well, what about this person? They're just not thinking that way. They're thinking we got to bring somebody in from the outside. I don't know why. That could be a scientific exploration right there. I don't know why they're thinking outside. We got to look outside first. So do you have any suggestions or strategies around how can companies, how can leaders first recognize the talent that they have? Is there assessments? Obviously, they have to be proactive about it and want to do that. How do they recognize the talent? And then how do they foster it and keep those people from leaving and starting their own companies?
I think you have to do that by, again, going back to the environment that allows people to stay. You have to make innovation a priority, not just by saying it in your brochures, but actually living it in everything. To identify the people who could be the innovators, they need to understand the business. They need to understand the domain. They need to have certain traits that are required for innovation, such as risk-taking, discipline, tolerance for ambiguity, and ability to view different perspectives and openness to new ideas and new experiences. They need an ability to synthesize information. So there are many factors that research has proven that can enhance that you probably have or you should look for, that enhances creativity, that enhances innovation. Now, many of these things that I mentioned are traits that innovators have in common, and people may possess these traits, and sometimes people themselves may not be aware that they have them, and people may not consider themselves creative unless they're put in an environment to create something new. So assessing these skills is essential if you're looking to kind of build this innovation biome or build this environment or culture where innovation happens all the time.
How about keeping them and preventing them from getting frustrated and going out and starting their own businesses?
You have to have a culture that supports innovation and innovativeness. And again, this is kind of by democratizing innovation, by making innovation a part of everybody's job, not just the job of a few people, which is what happens in many companies. So when you have that culture where it starts with the leadership, and the leadership through words and action kind of set a vision or encourage the organization to be innovative and expect innovation to happen, not just happen once in a while, but just expect innovation to happen everywhere, all the time. I think there are some examples, for example, everyone thinks of the iPhone as a great innovation, which it is, but all the surrounding things around it. So, for example, the box that it comes in is a patented innovation with a certain set of attributes. So this, again, means that everyone, even the guys responsible for packaging, are innovating in their area. And going back 100 years ago, with the introduction of, or a little less than 100 years ago, but with the introduction of Tide, which was a detergent that reframed or changed how we think about laundry and washing our clothes, the innovation was not just in the chemicals that went into the Tide product, but it was in everything, in how the product was sold, how quickly it was taken to market. It was the first creation of soap operas. It was giving away samples for free. It was all of these areas that innovated. It wasn't just one innovation. It was a culture of innovation in every single area.
I love the whole Tide thing. I think to your point that the word soap operas comes from selling detergent on TV.
Correct. Yes.
So really interesting. Kumar, this has been like so amazing, this information. I'm excited about the work that you're doing. If people want to get a hold of you, learn more about you, and more specifically, get a hold of your book, what are some of the best ways to reach out to you?
So the book is called The Innovation Biome. It's available everywhere. You can get it from Amazon or any other bookseller. The way to get a hold of me, you can go to my website, kumarmehta.com. That's KUMARMEHTA.com. Or email me at Kumar, KUMAR, at bridgesinsight, BRIDGESINSIGHT.com, or just look me up on LinkedIn or anywhere or any social channel.
Thank you so much for being on The Pivotal Leader today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. This has been fascinating, and you asked some fantastic questions, got me thinking.
Oh, good. I love to get you thinking. So we're going to get ready to sign off and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you, Kumar, again. So appreciate you being on The Pivotal Leader today. And thank you to our listeners for listening. You can find show notes for this episode, including contact information for Kumar and about his book on our website at thepivotalleader.com. The Pivotal Leader is a production of Pivot 10 Results, a strategy and training company that helps businesses shift from people problems to performance results. Remember, you can find our podcast on iTunes, and if you're an iTunes subscriber, please leave a rating or review. Don't forget to email me any questions that you might have about employee engagement, customer acquisition, or hey, why not innovation? We'll send those over to Kumar. I think this was such great information today. I'll either answer those emails personally via email, or I will put it on a future podcast. And until next time, if you're feeling stuck in your business, it's probably time to pivot. You've been listening to The Pivotal Leader. To learn more about how to shift your culture and pivot to success, visit pivot10results.com. That's pivot10results.com.